Our top story tonight. Football is back. Football's back, baby. We made it. It's been a long 6-7 months. Finally get football back. And we get the Chiefs beating the Ravens 27-20 last night. Incredible game. Isaiah Likely on the losing side, maybe proving to be a star in the making. Is he going to overtake Mark Andrews as the tight end one from Baltimore in fantasy? We're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about tonight's game, Packers, Eagles. We're going to talk about the Cincinnati wide receivers. What is going on with the Bengals wide receivers? And it goes deeper. Than T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. We're going to give you more injury updates, more news, more stats, trends, everything we need to know for week 1. Let's get into it tonight on Breaking Fantasy Football. All right, welcome into Breaking Fantasy Football. I am Alex Johnson. This is a brand new show on the yardsperfantasy.com podcast network, YouTube channel. I'm excited about it. It's a new format. Usually we're going to do this on Saturday nights, but I have a few things that kind of messed up my schedule for tomorrow, and we're going to do it tonight instead. Because how can we not do this show? It's week 1. How can we pass that up? So we're going to do that tonight. We're going to start with the Packers and the Eagles. The Eagles are favored 2.5 point favorites, 48.5 over under point total for that game. My pick for tonight, Packers 24, Eagles 20. I keep wanting to say Bengals. Packers 24, Eagles 20. We look at the Packers offense. They ended so hot last year. Jordan Love was fantastic at the end of last season. He completed 70% of his passes, 2,150 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, and just 1 interception. That was over his final 8 games, the second half of the year. Jordan Love was fantastic. And now he gets Christian Watson back healthy. He got his hamstring issues figured out, went to a specialist, learned that his one hamstring is bigger than the other hamstring, and that was screwing things up, and now he's got that fixed up. Didn't miss a single day of training camp. Did not miss a single day of training camp. That is huge for Christian Watson. So we could see him have a fun night tonight. He had a 23% target share over his last 2 healthy games last year. He was still involved. They want him involved in that offense. They got a deep wide receiver room behind him. I still think Jaden Reed's going to be the number 1 target in that offense. But we got a lot of guys. We got Romeo Dobbs. We got Dontavian Wicks, even Bo Melton gets involved in that offense from time to time. And they got 2 quality tight ends. I believe we just got the news that Tucker Kraft, right before we went live, I believe I saw that Tucker Kraft is going to be active for tonight's game. So we had two young, talented Packers tight ends on top of those wide receivers. And they added Josh Jacobs to the backfield this offseason as well. Now, we did get the news that Marshawn Lloyd is going to be out. That's not a surprise. A.J. Dillon's out for the year as well. So we're going to get a big workload early in the season from Josh Jacobs, and he is built for that big workload. We're going to talk a little bit more about Josh Jacobs later in the show. I have a little stat nugget I want to give to you. A little fun fact about Josh Jacobs coming up later in the show. Now, if we look at the Eagles side of this game, Eagles, if you hear the buzz, the Eagles sound like a team that very much does not want to be in Brazil right now. They do not want to play this game in Brazil. And how is that going to affect their play? Are we going to get a flat Eagles team on opening night? A team that's not inspired, that's not pumped up, that's not pissed off at the way they finished last year? We're going to get the same flat, dysfunctional Eagles team that we had in the second half of last year when they collapsed down the stretch? I hope not, man. I hope not, because that team could be so fun if they just get their shit together. I do think they can get it together. They got a new offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore. He's going to have that offense playing fast. They're going to be in a lot of 11 personnel. And I think that's a big reason why they went out and they traded for Jahan Dotson. They want to play a lot of 11 personnel. They didn't really have a wide receiver 3 beyond A.J. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. It was the rookie late round pick, Johnny Wilson. He's like a developmental wide receiver, missed a bunch of training camp with a concussion. I don't think they wanted to rely on that guy to be their wide receiver 3. Now, I'm not saying that Jahan Dotson is this star in the making. He's clearly not. He's a former first-round pick that the Commanders gave up on before his rookie contract was up. And they traded him, not only traded him, but they traded him within the division. They traded him to a division rival. That tells you all you need to know about what they think of Jahan Dotson. Now, he can still add an element to that offense that's going to be valuable for the Eagles. We're not touching Jahan Dotson in fantasy, but it could allow Devontae Smith to spend a little bit more time in the slot where he thrives. That could give us a lot more of those easy, high percentage targets for Devontae Smith. So we get more volume for Devontae Smith. So we got to be happy about the Jahan Dotson addition. Now, they did lose Jason Kelce, one of the greatest centers of all time. They lost Jason Kelce this offseason. But I still think that's a top 5 offensive line in the NFL, even without Jason Kelce. That's a big loss, and they're still going to be a really good unit. I don't think that just because Jason Kelce is gone, that the tush push just disappears. And I know he was a big part of that, but so is your 250-pound quarterback, Jalen Hurts. He's a pretty damn big part of that as well. I don't think they're going to get rid of that just because the center's gone. I think they're going to have no problem picking up where they left off with the tush push. Now, what may inspire them to fade the tush push a little bit could be the addition of Saquon Barkley. They have a talented running back, all-purpose running back in that backfield now that they haven't had in the past. So in those short yardage situations, we're going to see a little bit more turnaround handed off to Saquon Barkley, maybe a little less tush push, little less. But that opens up the question, though. The addition of Saquon Barkley, will Jalen Hurts start throwing to the running back more often than he has in the past? Because that's been a criticism of fantasy gamers, who are rostering, guys like Miles Sanders a couple years ago, Kenny Gainwell, DeAndre Swift last year. Jalen Hurts doesn't throw the running back enough. Is that going to change now that they have a superstar in that backfield who is an excellent receiver, Saquon Barkley? I think we do get some more additional targets to the running back in Philadelphia because it's Saquon Barkley. Now, on the defensive side for the Eagles, this is a defense that ranked 31st against the pass in 2023. That's great news for Jordan Love. That's great news for all those wide receivers, all those weapons, until you realize that in free agency, they added safety Xavier McKinney. And they drafted Quinyon Mitchell. They drafted Cooper DeJean. And then they signed safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Those guys are going to help this defense be much better in 2024. Now, beyond this game, we do have other stories to talk about heading into week 1. Because this game is going to happen in about an hour. And the whole first 8 minutes of the show are going to be irrelevant. So, let's talk about the other stories. The first I want to talk about is Trey Lance. Trey Lance is still in the headlines. Trey Lance, maybe not for a good reason. Trey Lance is going to be the QB3 in Dallas. That was announced this week. He's not the QB2. They traded for him last summer, hoping that maybe he could be the predecessor to Dak Prescott. Things don't work out with his contract, or they just decide to move on because he throws too many picks in a playoff game, whatever. Maybe they were going to develop Trey Lance. He could be the guy. Well, I don't think that's going to happen because a year later, he's not even the QB2. He can't even beat out Cooper Rush. Now, to be fair, Cooper Rush has played really well when given an opportunity to play over the last couple of years. I think it was, 2 years ago? He was he started about 3, 4, 5 games to begin the year. And Dak Prescott hurt his ankle, I believe, in week 1. And he played pretty well. He kept our fantasy stars, gave them the volume that we needed, and he kept the Cowboys winning. They went, I think, 3-1 or 4-1 in his starts. So Cooper Rush is very well deserving of the QB2. But this story just tells me Trey Lance is never going to happen. And we saw that in the preseason. He threw 5 interceptions. Come on. Now, let's move on to Detroit. We got Jahmyr Gibbs, who says he feels 98 to 100% healthy after his hamstring injury that forced him to miss a lot of training camp. A lot of the summer, he was out heading into his second season. He says he is more confident entering his second season. We expect him to play this week, be pretty much a full go. I mean, they probably won't roll him out into the 100% role, considering that he did miss quite a bit of time. He does have that hamstring injury. They don't want that thing to reappear and then linger beyond week one. Because if he re-aggravates that in week one, we're not going to see him again until like week 5. So I think the Lions, they understand that. They're gonna take it easy with him to a degree, but I do think we'll still get a pretty good role from Jahmyr Gibbs. He'll be startable in fantasy football. But yeah, they can lean on. They got Dave Montgomery in that backfield. They're gonna have no problem. Another guy coming off an injury is Mike Williams, and they told us this week he's going to be on a snap count to start the season. The quote from Robert Saleh, he said, "We're going to be smart with him because our eyes are on the entire season," and that's according to theathletic.com. Now, I mentioned at the top of the show that we have some concerns with the Bengals wide receivers. We're going to get to Jamar Chase. We're going to get to T. Higgins. With their injury concerns heading into week 1 and the contract issue that is still hanging over Jamar Chase heading into week 1. But there's another wide receiver in Cincinnati. They drafted him in the 3rd round. His name is Jermaine Burton. And the story that came out this week is that Cincinnati is not going to put Jermaine Burton on the field. They're not going to play him. They're not going to play him. He might even be inactive on game day. Now, this was prior to the T. Higgins injury, so that's probably going to change the plans here a little bit. Jermaine Burton's probably going to be active on game day. He's going to get a few snaps on offense, but anybody who has drafted Jermaine Burton, maybe in dynasty rookie drafts or at the end of some best ball drafts, hoping that maybe we could get a year 1 breakout, get some splash plays, get some spike weeks from Jermaine Burton in year 1, that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. They don't. It's not even about him on the field. The story from Paul Denner in the New York Times tells us that, quote, until they feel comfortable he's preparing in meetings, will be in the right spots, and can be trusted by the quarterback, it sounds far more likely a redshirt year lies ahead than anything else. Again, that was from Paul Denner in the New York Times. He covers the Bengals. You're talking about Jermaine Burton. Not going to happen in year 1. Our last top story tonight is that we can expect a 50-50 backfield split between Tyjae Spears and Tony Pollard this season. That is according to Titans offensive coordinator Nick Holtz. He says that we are going to expect just a 50-50 split between those two guys. It's going to be the hot hand. It's going to be, 50% of the snaps to Tyjae Spears, 50% of the snaps to Tony Pollard. That's really no different than what we were expecting coming into the year anyway. And if I'm going to pick one of these guys to play week to week, I'm going to kind of look a little bit at the projected game script. If I think this is going to be more of a, playing from a head game, which Titans probably won't have many of those if we're being honest, then maybe I'll lean Tony Pollard in those game scripts. Otherwise, I'm going to lean towards Tyjae Spears. I think Tyjae Spears is going to catch more passes. He's more explosive. Maybe he doesn't get as many goal line opportunities as Tony Pollard. I mean, he still might. But he's going to give us those. He's going to have more receptions for sure. He's going to be much more explosive, much more likely to break off a long run that is impactful for us in fantasy football. All right, let's move on to some more injuries heading into week 1. I did mention that we have a T. Higgins injury. T. Higgins popped up on the injury report. He was limited on Thursday, missed practice altogether on Friday. The Bengals now have him listed as doubtful for week 1 against the Patriots. And we've seen this before with T. Higgins. So even if he's active, we've seen this before where he's been on the active report, on the injury report, active on game day, but he either doesn't play or he barely plays. So even if we get a go-ahead, T. Higgins is going to play, I'm not putting him in my starting lineup. They have no incentive to play him this week anyway. They're playing against the Patriots. I don't think they really need T. Higgins to beat that Patriots team right now. And it might be a couple weeks before we see T. Higgins if he just hurt that hamstring this week. Now, on to the other wide receiver in Cincinnati. That's Jamar Chase. Zach Taylor asked about Jamar Chase's availability for this week, and he said, quote, "We'll see. We'll see." So Chase himself says he's a game time decision, and that good news, he believes that the contract is close. Now, as far as for fantasy for us, if he plays, Jamar Chase himself is telling us, don't put him in your starting lineup. Don't play him in fantasy, because his quote today said, "I'll probably be limited if I do play." So Jamar Chase himself is telling you, don't play him in fantasy if he's active this week. Stay away. We're staying away from the Bengals wide receivers. If you want to throw a flyer on Andre Yoshivas, go for it. Again, I think this is going to be more of a Zach Moss game script for the Bengals. They're just going to ground and pound, rely on their defense. The Patriots offense is going to be awful. Patriots offensive line is terrible. Quarterback play, receiver play, they're going to be a disaster. So I think the Bengals, they're just going to play it safe, and they're going to just grind out a win. It's going to be a low scoring, 17-10 type of game. I think they'll have no problem at home over the Patriots. Now, moving on to Justin Herbert. He's off the injury report. He's going to play. Josh Downs on the Colts. He hurt his ankle early in training camp. Now, he was playing really well in training camp. He was getting a lot of buzz. He was looking really good. He has been officially ruled out, which is no surprise. No surprise there. And then we get DeAndre Hopkins, another guy who was injured in training camp. Sounds like he's got an MCL injury. It was a little bit more serious than I think was led on at the time of the injury. He is still up in the air, though. He's listed as questionable. And then we got Russell Wilson, who, it was looking good for Russell Wilson for a little while there. He missed a bunch of training camp with the calf injury, popped back up healthy. He's good, ramping it up over the last week or two. He's the QB1, named the QB1, and then all of a sudden this week, he is on the injury report again. He is questionable. It's been said that he is day by day. Russell Wilson did say that he's doing everything he can to play, but it was Justin Fields who took the first team reps today in practice. So we'll have to see a little bit more about that over the next day or two leading up to game day against the Falcons. Now, also in Pittsburgh, Roman Wilson, the rookie out of Michigan, he has been ruled out. He had an ankle injury during training camp. This is not a surprise. He's been battling that for several weeks now. And really no incentive to rush him out there as a rookie, as a guy who missed a lot of camp. No surprise that he's out. Now, Jordan Addison also injured his ankle during training camp, but he's good to go. He's going to play. He's off the injury report. Keenan Allen on the Bears, he's got a heel injury. He's questionable. Now, the good news is he moved from limited participation earlier in the week, now up to full practice participation on Friday. So it's looking like Keenan Allen is trending towards being a play. He's going to play this week, but we do have to note that he is questionable, that heel injury, which could open up the door for a little bit more Rome Odunze right out the gate. As a rookie, he's a talented one. Keep an eye out for Rome Odunze, not just this week, but beyond. He's going to have a breakout season at some point. I think it's going to come earlier than most are expecting. Other injuries, Kyle Pitts off the injury report, good to go. That was a little scary earlier this week. He popped up with that hamstring. Off the injury report, no concern. Kyle Pitts is good to go. Revenge game against Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith, offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh, faces his old team in week 1. Then we get Tyler Lockett. He's questionable, expected to play. Antonio Gibson popped up with a hip injury. He's questionable, not really relevant for us right now in fantasy football, other than as a threat to take a few snaps, few targets away from Ramondre Stevenson. So I feel even better about Ramondre Stevenson if Antonio Gibson is not going to play. A.T. Perry, he's had a bunch of injuries, a bunch of issues he's dealt with heading into or throughout training camp, heading into the season. Expected to be the wide receiver 3, maybe even contend for wide receiver 2 duties in New Orleans. But the training camp has kind of been discouraging as far as that. He's questionable, not really relevant for fantasy football. Either is DJ Chark, who has been ruled out. Now let's get to the ones to watch segment. We got through the injuries, we got through the top stories. Let's go ones to watch. I'm interested to see the Cardinals and the Bills play this week. Is that going to be a shootout game? I mean, we got Josh Allen, who is going to put the offense on his shoulders with no Stephon Diggs. Not really a lot of proven talent in that receiving core right now. We got Curtis Samuel, who's battled a toe injury over the last several weeks. We got the rookie Keon Coleman, who has struggled throughout training camp. He can't separate. We told you that coming out of Florida State. He has been overdrafted all summer. I'm worried about Keon Coleman. Now, I do like Khalil Shakir, but we'll talk about him a little bit more at the end of the show as well. And then on the other side, we got Kyler Murray. I love Kyler Murray this year. He's got Marvin Harrison Jr. He's got Trey McBride. I expect Michael Wilson could have a little mini breakout this year. So I like the Cardinals offense. I think that's going to be a top 10 offense in 2024. And that could be a shootout, one of the best games of week 1, Cardinals, Bills. If I'm playing some DFS this week, I want some Cardinals, I want some Bills in my DFS lineups. Taysom Hill, another intriguing storyline, one to watch. What is his role going to be? It's been talked about throughout the summer. He's getting snaps all over the field. He's playing wide receiver, he's playing tight end, he's playing running back. He's getting a bunch of carries. And with Kendre Miller being on the IR, not playing at all really in training camp, didn't play in preseason. The coaches hate him because of it. I think we're going to get some more interesting usage from Taysom Hill. He's tight end eligible in a lot of leagues. I think he's going to be startable right away in fantasy football, but I'm excited to see what his role is going to be. I'm also going to be looking at some backfield tandems. I want to see how some of these ambiguous backfields are going to shake out. How are these going to look in week 1? And if you don't get a chance to watch all the games, you don't get to pay attention to that data very closely, if you come to yardsperfantasy.com on Tuesday morning, I'm going to have all the stats and data on yardsperfantasy.com in the fantasy notebook. I do that every year, every week. And we're going to especially be focused on the snap shares, target shares, route participation. We're going to look at these backfields as well as wide receiver, tight ends, and so forth. But I'm interested to see how things shake out in Cincinnati with Zach Moss, with Chase Brown. This week, and I mentioned it earlier, this week we can expect it to be a Zach Moss game script. The Bengals are going to be leading throughout that game. It's going to be kind of an ugly game, low scoring. They're not going to have T. Higgins. They're probably not going to have Jamar Chase. And even if they do, we've already heard Jamar Chase has told us he's going to be limited even if he does play. So they're going to lean on the run game. And I think they're going to lean on Zach Moss, who they trust. He's going to be more that in-between the tackles grinder that is perfect for this type of game script. I do like Chase Brown. I've been drafting a lot of Chase Brown. Week 1 is not the one, though. Week 1 is not the one. Zach Moss is the play in week 1 out of that Cincinnati backfield, in my opinion. I'm also watching the Pittsburgh backfield. We got Jaylen Warren coming off his hamstring injury. He should be good to go. I think it's going to be a big Najee Harris week, though. They're going to grind it out with Najee Harris. They're going to lean on him to be a full-blown workhorse in week 1 as they ease Jaylen Warren back into the lineup off of that hamstring injury. They got 2 talented running backs. Why risk re-aggravation, re-injury of Jaylen Warren in week 1? I think this is going to be a heavy Najee Harris game script. And then in Dallas, we have a lot of questions in Dallas. Is it going to be Rico Dowdle? Is it going to be Zeke? What's going to happen here? I've been drafting, if I'm drafting Cowboys running backs, I've been drafting Rico Dowdle over Ezekiel Elliott. I think he's more explosive. I think he's got a better chance to be that valuable play for us in fantasy football. Whereas Zeke's going to get a lot of that ugly work. The third and ones. He will get some goal line work, which will be valuable for fantasy football. I think that's what you're hoping for. If you draft Ezekiel Elliott, you're hoping he falls into the end zone and catches a few screen passes, and that might be enough. But I think Rico Dowdle's the guy who's going to give us those explosive plays and could have some big weeks throughout the season. We do want running backs in Dallas. We want these guys. We want these guys on our rosters. It's going to be a good offense. And we also probably want guys in the Chargers backfield. Just we don't know which one. Is it going to be J.K. Dobbins? Is it going to be Gus Edwards? Could it be Kamani Vidal? Kamani Vidal looked good in his one preseason game. He looked so good they didn't even want to play him in the next preseason game. It's like, all right, we've seen enough of this guy. He's good. He's healthy. He's good. We're going to keep him on the roster. And I think we're going to see Kamani Vidal emerge a little bit later into the season. I was hoping we'd get a little bit more preseason action from him. He did miss the first preseason game with an injury. So I think that kind of slowed that roll a little bit. But I think eventually Kamani Vidal is going to be the guy in that backfield. But to start things, I think we're going to look at an ugly mess between J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. And across the street in LA as well, we got Kyren Williams and Blake Corum. I've made my thoughts and opinions on these two backs pretty well known throughout the summer. I am definitely hashtag team Corum. We're drafting a lot of team Corum. We are fading Kyren Williams, punt returner Kyren Williams. Now, I can't really say too much about that now because they came out with a depth chart and they said that Blake Corum is going to be the kickoff returner. So, but it does tell me that Kyren Williams being the punt returner just tells me that they do not expect him to be the full-blown bell cow that he was last year. And we knew that anyway. We knew that the second they pushed the button on Blake Corum on draft weekend. But I am interested to see how this backfield unfolds throughout the year. It'll be a little bit more Kyren Williams earlier in the year, but I think as things go along, these will be like two ships crossing in the night. It's going to be Kyren, and eventually it's going to be Corum, and he's going to be the guy that you're going to want in the second half of the season. One last running back I'm going to be interested to watch this weekend and throughout the next several weeks to see what the role ends up being is Ray Davis. Ray Davis, rookie out of Kentucky, in the Buffalo backfield. I think he could be a little bit more involved than James Cook managers would like to think. He's a quality pass catcher, but he's a big running back. He's a big back. We don't get that with James Cook. So we're going to get goal line and red zone opportunities for Ray Davis, which could be really exciting in a really good Buffalo offense. So I like Ray Davis as a sleeper. I'm interested to see what we're going to get from him this year and this week. I do want to stop and just take this quick question here. Are we going to start Josh Jacobs or Kyren Williams? I'm going to go Josh Jacobs. I think we're going to get full-blown bell cow Josh Jacobs tonight against the Eagles. We talked about Marshawn Lloyd out, A.J. Dillon out, and then it's I can't even think of the kid's name, Emmanuel Wilson. I don't think he's particularly talented, at least not in a way that is going to threaten a significant workload from Josh Jacobs. We're going to get full-blown bell cow from Josh Jacobs in what could be a really, really high-scoring, fun game tonight. I'm definitely rolling with Josh Jacobs. All right, let's get to the trends to know. I got a couple interesting nuggets, and we're going to go back to last night's game between the Chiefs and the Ravens. We saw Isaiah Likely break out on the big stage in week 1 in prime time. Isaiah Likely became a star. He had 12 targets, turned those into 9 receptions, 111 yards from a tight end, also had a touchdown, and he was this close to a second touchdown and a almost possible victory. They were going to go for 2. And I said when they started that drive, I'm sitting here in my living room by myself. If they score a touchdown, you're going for two. And John Harbaugh, he was signaling we're going for two when that was looking like it was going to be a touchdown. Unfortunately, it wasn't. Still a great ending to that game either way. However, back to Isaiah Likely breaking out on the big stage. And on the flip side, we had Mark Andrews, who only had 2 targets, 2 catches for 14 yards. Isaiah Likely almost outproduced Mark Andrews by 100 yards. He came 3 yards short. Now, the talk all summer was Isaiah Likely could be a little bit more involved as a wide receiver in that offense. He's going to be more involved in that offense, even alongside Mark Andrews. And I think a lot of people kind of took that with a grain of salt. They didn't really believe in it. And I'll be honest, I wasn't really that down with it either. Because how often do we see 2 highly productive tight ends in the same offense? Not that often. However, it sounds like that coach speak came to fruition last night because these 2, they were on the field often. In fact, when they were on the field together with Mark Andrews on the field, Isaiah Likely was targeted 8 times. He had 8 receptions for 88 yards, and he scored that touchdown with Mark Andrews on the field. He doesn't need Mark Andrews to be out, to be a star in this offense, to be fantasy relevant. Now, I don't expect 111 yards every week from Isaiah Likely. That might never happen again in his career. But he showed us that Isaiah Likely is startable in fantasy football regardless of the status of Mark Andrews. With Mark Andrews on the field at the same time as Isaiah Likely last night, and this is according to Rich Rebar on Twitter, Isaiah Likely set career highs in route percentage. He ran 67.5% of the routes of Lamar Jackson's dropbacks. He ran a route on 67.5% of those dropbacks. He had a target share of 25.8%, which is elite for a tight end. Never mind the tight end 2 in that offense. He might be the tight end 1 now. He had 20% share of the team air yards, and his early down target share was 30.4%. Again, that was according to Rich Rebar. Now, if we look at Mark Andrews, this is according to Adam Koffler on Twitter. He tweeted this out. Mark Andrews' route participation last night, 74%. So Mark Andrews still ran more routes than Isaiah Likely, but it was only 74%. And I say only because if we look back at the season, this is according to Adam Koffler. Again, we look back to 2023, Mark Andrews ran a route 93.8% of Lamar Jackson's dropbacks when he was healthy. 91.5% in 2022, 84.3% in 2021, and 89.5% in 2020. Isaiah Likely had a 69% route participation last night. And that was a huge step up from 18% when they were playing together in 2023. And one more time, that is according to Adam Koffler on Twitter. Now, the last trend that I'm watching tonight is Josh Jacobs. He can make history. And this is according to Jared Smola on Twitter. Josh Jacobs needs just 5 catches. It might not happen tonight. It might happen over the next couple of weeks. But Josh Jacobs just needs 5 more receptions to become the all-time leader in career catches without a single receiving touchdown. Like, dude has never caught a touchdown in his life. He's 5 away from setting the all-time record for most catches in a career without a touchdown. And again, that's according to Jared Smola on Twitter. Thank you for the fantastic nugget, Jared. I'm going to watch that one tonight. Now, let's go to the underdog plays of the week as we wrap up this week 1 edition of Breaking Fantasy Football. We're going to get this. Usually, we're going to get this on Saturday nights. Like I said earlier, we're doing it on Friday night just because some schedule conflicts tomorrow. I want to get this out. So we're going to wrap it up with my underdog plays of week 1. In the first one I'm looking at, I'm going to give you 2. I'm usually probably only going to give you 1, but I got 2 I got my eye on this week. And the first is Khalil Shakir versus the Cardinals. I'm taking higher on Khalil Shakir, 43.5 receiving yards. We talked about it earlier. I expect the Cardinals Bills game to be a shootout. It's going to be pass happy. I know that Stephon Diggs is gone. Josh Allen doesn't have a lot of weapons, but they're still going to put this game on Josh Allen. They're still going to throw the ball a lot. And I think Khalil Shakir is going to be a big beneficiary of that. He's the only one in that receiving core who was there last year and the year before. So he has some familiarity with that offense. Josh Allen, he looked really good down the stretch last year. He played fantastic. If you look back at his stats, I wish I had him in front of me. But Khalil Shakir was excellent. He was efficient at the end of last season when he was getting some extra playing time. I think we're going to see a Khalil Shakir breakout game in week 1. His target competition is Curtis Samuel, who has a toe injury he's been battling, and it is Keon Coleman, who's a rookie who can't separate. He's struggled in preseason. He's struggled in training camp. And again, he's a rookie. So I think we're going to get full go Khalil Shakir. Of course, we're starting Dalton Kincaid as well. But I'm definitely going Khalil Shakir higher than 43.5 receiving yards. And I want to give you one more underdog play. And before I do, though, I want you to go over to Underdog. Download the Underdog app. Go to the Underdog website. Sign up and use promo code YARDSPER. That's all one word. It's on the bottom of the screen here, YARDSPER, and claim your special pick. Plus, they're going to give you a deposit offer bonus of up to $1,000 in cash. You can get up to $1,000 in cash. Depending on how much you deposit, they will match it up to $1,000. I think it's 50%. So if you deposit $2,000, they're going to give you $1,000 in your account. So take advantage of that. Of course, you don't have to deposit that much. You can deposit $10. They'll give you $5. But why wouldn't you? Let's put $2,000 in. Let's go all in. Go all in on Khalil Shakir higher than 43.5 receiving yards. Like I said, I do have one more for you, and that is Jaleel McLaughlin. This one feels criminally low. Jaleel McLaughlin. I got Khalil and Jaleel. Jaleel McLaughlin at the Seahawks higher than 12.5 receiving yards. Samaje Perine is gone. Samaje Perine, we saw him play last night. He's not on the Broncos anymore. He's in Kansas City. So Jaleel McLaughlin is going to be the full-blown third down and receiving running back in the Denver offense. He's going to catch passes, and guess what? He's got a rookie at quarterback. Not only does he have a rookie at quarterback, he's got a pocket passer, statue rookie at quarterback who's not going to be scrambling. He's not going to be running around. And he was the check down king. He was the check down king at Oregon last year and over the course of his college career. Bo Nix wants to get the ball out of his hands. He wants to check it down. He's going to be looking for Jaleel McLaughlin out of the backfield. Sean Payton loves Jaleel McLaughlin. Why do you think they were fine with cutting Samaje Perine? It's because of the existence of Jaleel McLaughlin. They're going to dump it down to him. They're going to check it down to him. They're going to get him. They're going to get him on angle routes. They're going to get him on screen passes. It's going to be he could top this on the first drive of the game. 12.5 receiving yards. This is criminal. Play this. Please play this. And use promo code YARDSPER to get that special pick at Underdog and to get your deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. This was fun. This was a fun show. Started a little shaky, started a little slow. First one of the season. We're going to get better as we do it over the course of the year. Like I said, normally these are going to be on Saturday nights, and they're going to be a little bit later. It's more about a 9:30 show on Saturday nights, which will give us even more information. We're going to have more information to give you heading into the games on Sundays. But I do want to thank everybody who did tune in, who did comment and participate in the show. This was a lot of fun. I think it was a successful first show, and like I said, we're going to be even better moving forward. I will be back Sunday morning, Sunday at 12:20 Eastern time. We're going to go about 40 minutes all the way up to kickoff. All I'm going to do is sit here You're going to ask me questions. I'm going to answer them all the way up to kickoff on Sunday morning. I'm looking forward to that. In the meantime, check out all of our content, all of my rankings, my week 1 rankings at yardsperfantasy.com. Use our trade calculator at yardsperfantasy.com and use our start sit tool at yardsperfantasy.com. This was fun. This was Breaking Fantasy Football.